What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the BTR Garage. My name is Justin. Today's video, we're gonna be installing ARP wheel studs to the rear of my GR86. This is a follow-up to the fronts that we did not too long ago. We're gonna show you the easy way to get those wheel studs installed on the rear of the car. Now, installing the rear ARP wheel studs on the GR86 or any generation of the BRZ86 is a little more difficult than doing the fronts. The fronts are really easy. Now, traditionally with the rears, you would have to remove the large axle nut, remove the axle to get access to the hub. We're not gonna do that at all. We've got a really easy way to do this job, and there's very little on the car that you have to take apart. So for the rears, like I said, we're using ARP wheel studs. This is model number 1007729. This is the 2.5-inch wheel studs. We use 3 inches on the front. The 2.5-inch wheel studs are what we're gonna use to get these installed using this easier process. You cannot use 3-inch wheel studs using this particular process. However, the 2.5-inch wheel studs should be just fine for any wheel or spacer that you're looking to add to the rear of the car. And speaking of spacers, we've got my Muteki 12mm spacer. We're gonna put this on the rear of the car as well. We have a couple specialty tools, which we've shown you before, our ball joint puller, otherwise known as a wheel stud remover. This thing works awesome for getting those wheel studs out. And then the wheel stud installer, this little device here, basically a small cylinder with a bearing on the back and a recessed face to allow you to pull the wheel studs through the hub. So we're gonna go ahead and grab all of our tools and supplies, jump to the back of the car, show you how to take things apart and get the wheel studs installed, and of course put everything back together and torque it up to spec. And then we'll finally get to what the car looks like now with all of the 12mm spacers on all 4 wheel corners. So with the car up in the air and the wheel already off, we're gonna go ahead and remove our brake pads and then the brake caliper, just like we did on the front. We got to get all the way down to the hub, which means we need to get the rear disc rotor off as well. So we'll go ahead and start taking things apart. With the disc rotor off now, we can go ahead and start removing the 4 hub bolts that are on the back side of this unit right here, kind of next to your axle. And if we look down behind the hub here, you can kind of see them. There's one down there, one up there, and then on the other side, you've got one right there. Obviously, this is the front or the face of them, and then the other one down there. So we've got to get a tool back in there. You're gonna need a 14mm socket with some extensions to reach back in this area. It's not super difficult to get the tools back here. They're only torqued to 49 foot-pounds, and we'll give you a closer look of where those bolts are on the back here. There's a bit of a lip around the edge of the knuckle here, and where my fingers are pointing, the 2 bolts on the back side are hidden there next to the axle, as you can see. And if we go around to the front of the axle, they're hidden around that lip on the front of the knuckle. So grabbing our ratchet, this is about the easiest way to get to them. We have a 14mm deep socket on here. Kind of got to play blind a little bit here and feel it out until you find the bolt. So there we go. Get it loosened up. There's the first one. Go up to the top, got it right on. Okay, we got that one loosened up, and we'll go ahead and back these out about 90% of the way. You don't have to take them all the way out, although it doesn't hurt if you do. What we're doing is loosening the hub enough so we can pull it out and away from this main unit right here, the spindle, or I forget what they call this piece, but the goal is to be able to pull the hub, which is in the front here, away from that just enough to slip our ARP studs behind the hub and get them into the installation hole. So that one's backed out most of the way. Back out the bottom one, and you can tell how far they're backed out by looking in the front here. So if you look in the front where we showed you earlier, you can see the bolt backing out through the threaded hole. Move to the other side. This one is a little trickier to see. It's not really a good spot for the camera back here, but I've got a different extension set up on this one. A small extension with a regular 14mm socket. That usually works the best getting access to this thing. Find the bolt, we've got the top one. There we go, got it loosened up. Find the bottom bolt. And we got that one loosened up, and we'll back those out almost all the way, but not quite. Moving back to the front now, you can see the bolts are recessed in the bolt hole there. So they're not completely removed, like I said, but almost all the way. So now we're ready to start removing these OEM wheel studs. Grab our trusty tool here and get it in place and start popping these suckers out. The easiest way to get to them is from the back side here. So the front side, there's not quite as much room. If you come in from the back here, you can get your tool back here to ratchet them out. So there we go, stud number one. And it's just a matter of fishing it out of there like that. Kind of have to move the hub around to get it to fall out. We'll take a few of them out here and then show you how to put the new ones in. So moving to the other side of the hub here, we're actually going to install the wheel studs now from the front side of the hub. If you look back here behind the emergency brake drum, there is a couple cavities down here. You can kind of stick your finger in here on either side of this area here. What we're going to do is stick a wheel stud in there, kind of lay it sideways, and then move the hub along with the wheel stud to get it to kind of angle in and slide into the hole in the wheel hub. So we'll grab a wheel stud here, and it can be a little bit tricky, but take the back of it and stick it down into that cavity, and then kind of bring your hole for your hub down to line up with it. And then you kind of got to wiggle it, get it to line up, and then you should pull through the hole in the hub and then be able to turn it a little bit more and then slide the stud through. So getting the back of the wheel stud into that cavity enough is kind of the key part. I'll show you another one in slow motion. And you might have to pull away the hub again to get a little bit of space. But we'll slide this up in there, angle it upward. We're gonna bring our hole up this time and then back down. So we're moving that hole to get lined up with the stud. Give it a little wiggle. There we go. That one got hung up on the little spring retainer in the back there for the drum brake, but that's really all there is to it. We can then grab our wheel stud installation tool, slide it over, grab our sacrificial lug nut, get this in place, and you guys should be familiar with this. Once we got it tightened up, go ahead and crank it down with the impact driver. We'll go ahead and get these other two popped off here. The threads on this bottom one were giving me a little bit of a fit. I think one of the threads here got a little messed up, so we'll have to clean that up and get that one installed properly, but we'll get these others done. So now that we have all of the ARP wheel studs installed into the hub, we can start putting things back together. It's pretty straightforward. Since we didn't remove the bolts on the back of the hub to the hub carrier assembly here, the big piece in the back, since we left those partially threaded in, all we have to do is just start tightening them back up, torque everything to 48 or 49 pound-feet of torque. Then we can go ahead and put our disc rotor back on, our brake caliper and brake pads, and then we have our 12mm spacer, of course, as well to put on, and then wrap it up by putting on the wheel and the lug nuts. So we'll go ahead and get started putting everything back together, and then should be able to wrap this video up. Now with everything put back together, we'll grab our 12mm spacer, slap that on there as well, grab our wheel. So let's get the car off of the quick jack. I'm already excited to see how this is gonna look with these 12mm spacers. I can tell that there is a difference with the wheel. Definitely out a little bit more in the wheel well. Should be a better flush fit than obviously the OEM fitment, but let's get it down, torque all the wheel lug nuts, and see how this thing looks. Initial view from the garage, the 12mm spacer definitely is filling out that wheel well a lot better than the OEM setup. We'll check out some glamour shots of the car where it is looking really good now with the spacers on the front and the back. Next thing we gotta fix is that fender gap. Get that fixed with some suspension, all in due time, and then a track shot from this past weekend in full action. So there we go. We now have ARP wheel studs on the rear of the car as well as the front. Don't have to worry about breaking those OEM wheel studs anymore. And of course, we have a little bit more wiggle room when it comes to wheel fitment, spacers, and things like that. So thanks everybody for watching. I hope the video was helpful. If you have any thoughts, comments, or questions, like always, leave them down below. I'd love to hear from you. As always, if you're interested in any of the products or the tools that we're using here at the BTR Garage, you can check the description for the links to those as well. And stick around, we've got more good stuff coming up very soon. Stay safe out there, everybody. I am checking out. Talk to you all next time.